Most of the locals were familiar with the fact the famous painter Winslow Hawthorne lived in our hometown. A surprisingly uneccentric place for someone infamously creative. Occasionally, I walked past on my way home and happened to catch him on his study. Deservedly, a handful of Hawthorne's paintings had fetched hundreds of thousands of pounds. I would have paid quite a sum myself if I had the bank account for it. I was itching to communicate with him, or at least try. What trouble could that possibly bring me? Rejection? That's about it. So I constructed a carefully worded masterpiece, a well-mannered and concise email, asking whether I could get him to do a painting for me, for a generous fee, of course, too. Days passed, and I was beginning to conclude that he wouldn't reply. Give Winslow a break. He probably gets messages every day, I told myself. Not 36 hours later, I got notifications on my phone. I was overjoyed. An email. Thank you, sir. Your kindness is much appreciated. I am committed to making your idea come true. At the end of the message, he invited me to his house where he would produce my portrait. A tear ran down my cheek, and I couldn't say yes fast enough. His portraits were among my favorite pieces. With shaking fingers, I pushed his doorbell. The first thing I discovered was that he was as friendly as I'd hoped. The second, that his coffee was the strongest I'd ever tasted. We went to his studio, and he pointed to the small wooden chair next to his canvas. He whistled while doing a rough outline onto the canvas. His eyes didn't seem to budge from me the entire time, yet he refused to ask me anything. I had so much to tell him. If only he'd allowed me to talk. No, be quiet. You mustn't complain. Christ, he whispered. I don't care for it one bit. He erased and started over. Not wishing to bother him, I sat very still. With drifting eyes, I scanned the room, admiring the surrounding works, most of which were propped up against the far wall. There were plenty of unfinished portraits where he'd completed the hair, the forehead, the eyes, and the nose. But the rest was just blank canvas, untouched. It struck me as odd. They didn't look quite done to me. He slammed his pencil against the work surface, almost snapping it in half. Then he spoke. Sorry. I find that I've lost a lot of inspiration recently, he admitted. Doing the same pieces, the same way, with the same outcome. It's boring. I want variety. I find I'm no longer able to capture the essence of the people I paint, and so this is why I was glad to accept your offer. I need an alternative method. How do you capture someone's essence? I was curious to see how he'd find mine. Excuse me, he smiled. He left the room. Once more I looked at those unfinished paintings. A shame, I thought. They would have been splendid had he seen them through. A faint noise from the other room, sort of like a kettle boiling. The door creaked open, and I almost fell back into my chair. Towards me he came, with two bright yellow snakes gripped between his clenched fists by the end of their tails, their eyes erupting with rage. He was purposely antagonizing them. Make no mistake, they were preparing to yap me. I shifted in my chair. What's going on here? Sit very still, or you'll make them upset, he muttered. Then placed them on my lap. Don't move. I had no time to react to what he was doing. One of the snakes barely seemed to care, while the other slithered up my trouser leg and stopped by my thigh. I couldn't help but wince. I looked at Hawthorne to suggest that it was time for him to intervene. This was getting ridiculous. The snake was stuck around my groin. My legs were tense. I wanted to run. I stared at it every moment. Please let this be over shortly. There it goes again. An occasional hiss. its chilly skin against my leg, making its way down. Don't move. Don't move. How relieved I was when the snake had enough of feeling around, being suffocated inside my trousers. The second joined it, and they both wiggled across the floor. "Excellent," said the artist, chuckling. I looked at his canvas, and I saw that amidst my panic, he'd painted the wet patch around my groin. That's it, I'm going," I announced. "Okay, but we're not quite done yet," he told me. "We're most definitely done. I didn't agree to this. You wished me to create a great piece of work for you, and that's what I'm doing. My art is dwindling. The pieces are no longer exciting. This one will flourish, I can assure you. You're just a sick man disguised as a creator." He called behind. "Andrew!" That's my assistant. "Shut the door to my workroom, please." "Let me go," I snapped. I'm not much pleased with this work yet, but it's getting there. I see potential in you. This could be a great painting. As soon as I went for the door, I tripped on a wire that was connected to a large bucket of white paint, which fell right on top of my head. The paint blinded me momentarily, and before I could wipe it from my eyes, he was on top of me, battering me with his easel. He whacked at me for ages. I shrieked for help, for Andrew, for anyone. I crawled across the floorboards. I coughed. I grimaced. I coughed again. As I rubbed the paint from my eyes, I saw the white was now mixed with red, and he dragged me back to the chair. There was a terrible burn in my cheeks. My neck was bleeding severely. Blisters littered my hands from where I had tried to fend him off. "Excellent, excellent, excellent," he kept repeating while he painted away. "Excellent. Please let me go." He danced about the canvas, but I couldn't see too much. His feet shuffled across the floor. "Under one condition," he told me. "Not a word of what has happened here." I didn't reply. And how could he expect me to keep my mouth shut, even being an enormous fan? That was beyond me. Okay, he carried on. "If you can promise me you'll keep your mouth shut, then this piece is yours. And let me tell you, you may not be able to see much of it now, but when you do, a Winslow Hawthorne on the living room wall." I forced a smile through my agony. When he was done, he gave me the canvas and got his assistant to stand out by the road to clarify when no cars were coming, so as to get me into my own without raising concern. As I drove back home, blood spilled into my lip. I got an awful fright as I envisioned him sitting there in the back seat stroking the canvas on his lap, as you might see a sleeping dog. Terror floated through my bones. Hey there, kids. It's me, MrCreepyPasta. I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to tonight's story or watching tonight's video. I appreciate it. As always, I cannot thank you enough for always being here. And if you guys would like to see more or hear more, then I'd appreciate it if you click that subscribe button. Or if you're listening on the podcast, then click the follow button. You guys like words, right? I speak words. You guys hear words. Also, did you know you can read words? They put a lot of words into things called books. And I have 2 of those on Amazon. MrCreepyPasta's Creepypasta collection. Volumes 1 and Volume 2 are available now on Amazon, if you give them a search, or you could just scroll down to the description. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to all you guys who support on Patreon, patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta, especially Jacob Shaffer, Jay, Zach, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Cam Lando Higuchi, Bobby Karman, Tristain Pelton, Chase Burnett, Diana Kraus, Katrina Beisel, Kayden the Spooky Boy, Zane Nightshade, MyBodySoundsLikeRiceKrispys, AshWood, Lord of the Weebs, Miss Xandra, MrUnsettlingSpaghetti, Eurogore, Tsuji Campbell, Marco Takes Dabs 420, Stricken, Azurine Fox, Robert White, Andreas Garza, Snails Brennan, Legit Quad Feed, Fried Chicken 12, James Bruce, Chris Levin, Freddy Krueger, Ty Nanny, Justin Johnson, 1-800-Nightmare, Unknown Nobody, Michael Scarborough, Jason Wilson, Infernal One, James Lowe, Lisa Cottrell, Jimbo the Hutt, Caspian, Jordan Nels, Hades' Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Brian Arce, Cryptic Nightmares, Brennan Wright, Someone You Love, S-Man, Kiwi the Sloth, Liam Newman, Sky Harbor, Caleb Dougal, Nina Smith, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Talon Karlik, Daniel Polson, Trace Miles, and Corey Kenshin. Thank you guys so much for supporting me, and if you guys would like to join them on the list of people's names I mispronounce, you can always do so at patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta, as well as all those fine people in the description down below who help support this channel and keep the lights on and give treats to Hylas and Hercules. You guys, as always, are the real MVPs, and I love and appreciate every single one of you who support there or just support anywhere by watching and subbing. So good night, everybody, and sweet dreams.